Welcome to the next two funnest week of the MLS season. Actually, I don't even know if funnest is actually a word, and if it is, I basically just invented because these next 2 weeks is going to be very fun in the MLS regular season, and it's the 2 weeks that I think a lot of people have been looking forward to in the MLS season. And that, of course, is the annual Heniken Rivalry week, where we are going to see some of the biggest rivalry in MLS that's going to be played in this next 2 weeks. I already mentioned earlier, we're going to kick off the Heniken Rivalry week with the Cali Clasico. That's going to be happening in just a bit. And the reason why I did not include the Cali Clasico in this preview is because of the fact that, as I said, it's going to start in a couple of hours. And by the time this video is going to upload, the Cali Clasico probably will already be over. And there's really no point of me doing a preview of a game that is already being over. But that being said, let's take a look at the remaining 12 games that's happening in the first of 2 weeks of the Heniken Rivalry week. And all 12 of these games is actually going to be happening on Saturday. And we are actually going to have a weekend action in MLS where there's no Sunday games whatsoever. I think that's the first time that has happened this season, but there's a good reason that is the case, because I think Sunday is when they have the All-Star Skills Challenge, so that's why they can't schedule an MLS game during that point. But we begin with the first of 12 games that's going to be happening on Saturday. And by the way, it's going to be super busy at a point where there could be 9 games that is going to be simultaneously playing in MLS. And I have no idea how I'm going to try to figure out in terms of watching all of them. I'll probably will only watch like a little bit less than half of the 9 games that is simultaneously playing, because 4 games is pretty much the maximum I can really keep an eye on at the same time. But we start off with the first game of the busy Saturday action with the nicest rivalry in MLS, that is Minnesota United and Sporting KC, as this game will start at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff time is 2:38 p.m. Local time. As this one, I believe it's going to be either on ESPN or ESPN2. Either way, it's going to be on the ESPN network, and it will be the first of 3 games that is going to be on national televised out of these 12 games on Saturday. Minnesota, of course, they had a relatively disappointing 1-1 draw against the San Jose Earthquakes on the road. If you wonder why exactly it was a relatively disappointing draw, well, you should basically watch my quick recaps of what happened after the game that I attended just a couple of minutes ago. But for Sporting KC, they also drew 1-1 to the Portland Timbers at home in a game where they were trailing pretty much the entire game, and they're trying to get that crucial goal to get themselves an equalizer, which eventually they did in the 90th minute, and they came close in deep into stoppage time, but only were able to salvage a 1-1 draw. Last 5 head-to-head between both of these teams, which includes the playoffs. The last time both of these teams met was in the playoffs. It was in the Western Conference second round and the Western Conference semifinal match, where Minnesota was able to win 3-0 against SKC, and it's the first win that the Loons has had against SKC at Children's Mercy Park. But before that, it was a 1-0 win that Sporting KC got before Sporting KC were able to go on the road and win 2-1 against Minnesota, and that was also the first time that Sporting KC was able to win on the road against Minnesota and at Allianz Field. But before that, in the MLS's back tournament, Minnesota was able to win 2-1 against Sporting KC before they also won 2-1 against Sporting KC, but this game was at Allianz Field. And yeah, this is a game where, obviously I'm not confident whatsoever, because after watching that performance that the Loons put, and especially the fact that this is the 3rd game in 7 days, and especially the fact that I already talked about how I did not like the fact that the schedule maker decided to give the Loons a road game in the West Coast, and now they have to kind of come back at Allianz Field, and that road game in the West Coast basically sandwiched between 2 home games. It makes absolutely no sense why that is the case. So hopefully fatigue will not be an issue for this game for the Loons. But that being said, SKC also is playing their 3rd game in 7 days, or actually, are they? No, they're actually I think playing their 4th games in the last 11 to 12 days, so they're also going to be very fatigued coming into this one. But yeah, let's just hope maybe Minnesota will have a better performance compared to the last game against the Quakes, which, as I said, it was a very disappointing draw considering the circumstances that happened in that one. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is the rematch of the MLS Cup, and this is another game that, it might not sound like a rivalry, but in some way it kind of is, with the way that anytime when you have a rematch of the MLS Cup, a lot of people will keep an eye on that one. And unfortunately, tomorrow I will work until 3 o'clock, so most likely I won't be able to watch this game between Minnesota and Sporting KC. But this one, I think I can definitely watch this one because I get off at work at 3 o'clock, and this game actually kicks off a little bit, 5 minutes before I actually get off work. And I mean, missing 5 minutes off the game probably won't kill my chances in terms of actually doing a review on that game, besides watching the condensed version, unless there's like an early goal and some early thing that happened in this one. But yeah, as I said, this game will start at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is not going to start until 5:55 p.m. local time, which means this is going to be on the Fox network. I think this game is going to be on the big Fox. Columbus, well, yeah, they are definitely not coming into this rematch of the MLS Cup in great form. In fact, they have been one of the teams that has really underachieved this season, and in some way are kind of having an MLS Cup hangover, because they have now lost 5 in a row coming into this MLS Cup rematch. While the Seattle Sounders, they have not only not have an MLS Cup hangover, but they continue to try to get themselves not only be in the playoffs, but maybe back into MLS Cup contention after they were able to win 1-0 on the road against FC Dallas, and that was after when they won 6-2 against the Timbers on the road in the Cascadia Derby, and their record is now 11-6-3, and also they're now back at the top of the Western Conference. In terms of the last 5 head-to-head matchup, which includes the MLS Cup, well, since we talk about the MLS Cup, last time both of these teams met each other, Columbus were able to win 3-0 of one of the biggest win in their franchise history, because that grabbed them the second MLS Cup in their franchise history. Before that, it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams, before Seattle did win 2-1 on the road against Columbus. Then it was a 0-0 draw between both of these teams, and then Columbus won 3-0 against the Seattle Sounders. So there's no doubt that, with recent form, the Sounders, they definitely have a big chance for some revenge coming into this one. But as I said before, anytime when you have a rematch of a big playoff game, and in this case, the MLS Cup, yeah, I mean, as much as I know the Sounders want to get some revenge after what happened in MLS Cup, they would feel like the only way to kind of satisfy them to get the full revenge in MLS Cup last season is trying to get back to MLS Cup this year. But that being said, I'm pretty sure that's going to be a motivator that Brian Schmitzer is going to say to his team that, yeah, this is a great opportunity for you to kind of redeem yourself after what happened just a couple of months ago, and you're playing against a Columbus team that has really struggling in the last couple of games. Like, this team right now, I talk about how much they struggle on the road. Well, now they're also struggling at home, and this is something that we don't usually see happen a lot with a lot of MLS team, which is, whenever an MLS team play in a brand new stadium, they tends to get off to a fast start and tends to make that stadium an absolute fortress. That has not been the case for the Columbus Crew. I mean, they have really struggled this season at Lower Dock Field, and only have like one game so far at their brand new stadium out of the 5 home games that they have, or actually the 4 home games that they have. This is the 5th home games that they're going to have at Lower Dock Field. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be DC United versus Atlanta United. So DC coming into this game with an 8-3-9 record, while Atlanta coming into this game with a 5-9-6 record. And I'll tell you what, DC United, they have started to become not just one of the most entertaining team to watch, but probably the most entertaining team to watch. Because when you look at the last couple of games, man, oh man, some of these games that DC has involved has been incredibly insane. But unfortunately, the problem with that for DC is that they haven't won all of those entertaining games that they involve. In fact, the last one they were in, where they play an entertaining game against New England, they lost 3-2 on the road, and their record is now 8-3-9, as I mentioned. While Atlanta, as I mentioned, they're really going through a second half resurgence right now after winning 3 in a row and have improved their record to 5-9-6. In terms of the last 5 head-to-head between both of these teams, DC of course win 2-1 against Atlanta before Atlanta was able to win 4-0 on the road against DC. Then Atlanta won 2-0 against DC United before DC returned the favor and win 2-0 at home against Atlanta before DC was able to win 3-1 against Atlanta United. And yeah, this is a game that I expect could be another entertaining game, and I expect that there could be also a lot of goals scored in this game. Although that being said, it seems like DC is the one that tends to score a lot of goals, and Atlanta these last couple of games they haven't really been that team that we know of a couple of years ago, which is a free scoring team. But it's becoming a team that it's kind of starts similar, looking a little bit similar, like a Frank de Boer team, which is able to grind out victory, which I think right now Atlanta fans, I know before they get frustrated with these kind of results, but as of the way that how this team has struggled, they're kind of getting used to it and saying, you know what, maybe sometimes we'll accept the fact that we just need to grind out result, because at the end of the day, 3 points is 3 points. Like, it doesn't matter if you win 1-0 or 5-0, it's still going to be 3 points at the end of the day. And with this team starting to get victory, they're definitely getting themselves back in the conversation of the Eastern Conference playoff race. And if they can keep this going, they're not only going to be above the red line soon, but they are really trying to rise themselves up the table and are hoping to get themselves where they should be aiming for this season, which is trying to get the top 4 spots so far in the Eastern Conference. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, it's going to be Inter Miami versus TFC. So Inter Miami coming into this game with a 5-4-9 record, while TFC has the worst record in MLS with a 3-6-11 record. As this game will also start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 8:08 p.m. local time. In fact, this is one of, I think, the 5 games that's going to be kicking off at the same times, and hence that's why I said there's going to be 1 point at this Saturday action where there's going to be like 9 games that is going to be happening at the same time. Miami, of course, they won back-to-back home games and have done it in incredible fashion with them scoring late winners in back-to-back of those home games to get themselves 3 points. While TFC, yeah, they're winless in the last 5 games, and there's only one prior meeting between both of these teams, and it was TFC winning 2-1 against Inter Miami. But for Miami, this is a big opportunity for them to get a victory against a TFC team that are still stuttering and still look like they haven't got to that stage where they can maybe create a late second half resurgence to have a bit of a playoff push. But yeah, we shall see how this game of course would turn around, and let's see if Miami can get not only get 3 points again, but let's see if they can do it without have to rely on scoring a late winner. I mean, as much as it's great for the fans to see the team that you support score a late winner, that's something you definitely don't want to rely on almost every single game. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is a game that almost was the battle between the top team versus the bottom team, because FC Cincinnati technically is not dead last in the East. They're second from bottom in the East, but they are about to play against a team that is basically an unstoppable force in the Eastern Conference. That is the New England Revolution, who their record is now at 14-4-3, while FC Cincinnati has a 3-8-7 record. As this game once again will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 8:08 p.m. local time. As I mentioned, the Revs, they have been unstoppable in their last couple of games. In fact, in the last 8 games, they've won 7 out of the 8 games and have really run away with the Eastern Conference top spot, while other teams around them have been struggling. Well, for Cincinnati, they have drawn 4 straight games, and they're starting to kind of go into the same path that the Vancouver Whitecaps and the San Jose Earthquakes had problem with, which is they're just drawing way too many games in a row, and also their winless run is now at 9 games. There's only 3 prior meetings between both of these teams, with New England winning 1-0 against FC Cincinnati, before New England winning 2-0 against FC Cincinnati, and then FC Cincinnati did win the first meeting between both of these teams by winning 2-0 on the road against New England, but that was a different New England team than the one that is now. That, as I said, they are just, I even said it's real that Eastern Conference top spot is really New England to lose, and that besides any late season collapse, I think they're gonna get the number 1 seed in the East. And let's see if they can maybe get another 3 points coming into this game, which I also will say with New England, as much as they have been winning a lot of games, they also need to remember that they got to keep keep winning all these next couple of games too. And I know you probably sound, well, why should I say that? Well, you know, in MLS, sometimes even the hottest team in the league, when they do face against a team that they expected to win, and then that did not happen. And we have seen before, there's been some big upsets that happen in MLS, and for Cincinnati, you know, they want to end their 9-game winless run and try to draw in another game, and now potentially could be one game away from equaling the record for the most consecutive draw in a season. You know, they need to potentially win this game or even lose this game, which I don't think that's kind of like on their mind, because their winless run would be at double digit if they lose this game. And yeah, let's see if we potentially maybe can see a little bit of offset in this game, or will New England probably just going to run away with it, and this would be just easy 3 points for them once again. But now moving on into the last game on this board is none other than the New York Derby between the New York Red Bulls versus NYCFC, as this game will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 8:25 p.m. local time, as this game is going to be on national television, and it's actually the third game of that will be on national television, as I think this one is going to be on FS1. The Red Bulls have a record of 6-4-9, while NYCFC have a record of 9-4-6. This is the 19th meeting between both of these New York foes, and the Red Bulls so far still leads the series with a record of 10-2-6 against NYCFC. But things have started to be a little bit tightened up in this derby. I mean, I remember in the early days of this derby, the Red Bulls pretty much just own NYCFC every single game. But lately, NYCFC started to make this rivalry a little bit more even, because in the last 5 head-to-head matchup, it was NYCFC winning 5-2 against the New York Red Bulls, before the Red Bulls did win 1-0 against NYCFC, but NYCFC did win 2-1 against the Red Bulls, and the Red Bulls, of course, won 2-1 against NYCFC, and then it was a 1-1 draw between both all of these teams to wrap up the last 5 head-to-head meeting. And there's no doubt that NYCFC is going to be considered the favorites coming into this New York Derby, because, you know, they are a team that is in much better form that the Red Bulls have been in this one. But I know I'm going to throw this old cliche whenever I mention in a derby matchup, but, you know, form doesn't really matter. Like, this is a game where it's all about who really wants it more, and again, we'll see which team wants this rivalry more. Will the Red Bulls potentially, you know, want this more and continue to try to get themselves back into a good form to get themselves back into playoff conversation, or will NYCFC wants this one more so that they can help off against some of these teams that is in hot pursuit to try to get the second spot in the Eastern Conference. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last 6 games that's going to be happening in the busy Saturday action of match week number 20. So moving on, in terms of the next game, is Orlando City taking on the Chicago Fire, as Orlando City has an 8-7-4 in record after they drew in a very entertaining 1-1 draw against Nashville SC away, while for the Chicago Fire, they have a record of 5-5-10 after they suffer a heartbreaking loss against Miami on the road as they lose 3-2, and now their record is at 5-5-10. This game will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 8:08 p.m. local time. The last 5 head-to-head between both of these teams, it was the Fire winning the last meeting between both of these teams, winning 3-1 at home, but Orlando City did win 4-1 at home against Chicago. Before, Chicago did win 5-2 against Orlando City on the road, and it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams, and then the Fire, of course, winning 4-0 against Orlando City. And strangely, Chicago actually have a good record against Orlando City. Now, granted, a lot of the good record that they had was against an Orlando City team that was pre the Oscar Pereira day, but even during the Oscar Pereira days, they still have a decent record against Orlando City. And yeah, you know, this is definitely a good opportunity for the Fire to potentially bounce back after that heartbreaking loss that they suffered against Miami. And in some way, they kind of had to, because yeah, this is now the second of 5 games that they are going to be on the road. And as I said, this road trip for the Fire, it's really kind of a season-defining road trip for them, because if they cannot get a win during this 5-game road trip, then their season is starting to crumble in front of their own eyes. But for Orlando City, you know, they have a chance to potentially get a win in this game. And so far this season they've been relatively good so far at home, but they want to trying to get themselves back into second position in the East, which is a position that they kind of held on for a very long time until they kind of lost it a couple of match week ago. They need to, of course, get 3 points in this one against the Chicago Fire. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Union versus Montreal. So the Philadelphia Union has an 8-7-5 record, while Montreal has a 7-6-7 record. This game will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 8:08 p.m. local time. The Union, of course, won 1-0 against NYCFC at home before Montreal drew 0-0 against FC Cincinnati away. Last 5 head-to-head matchup between both of these teams, it was the Union winning 2-1 against Montreal before going on the road and winning 4-1 against Montreal. But Montreal did win 4-0 against the Union, and then they won 3-0. The Union won 3-0 against Montreal before Montreal was able to win 4-1 against the Philadelphia Union. So it's kind of even between both of these teams, and in some way it could be kind of unpredictable because sometimes one of these teams can have a very good role performance and they are able to pull off a big role victory. But that being said, when you look at this match, obviously I think the Union is going to be the favorites in this one. And the Union, they haven't been playing that well lately, but that being said, they are in the mix of this logjam that we have in the Eastern Conference, where there's a lot of teams that is very close around them. If they can get a win in this game against Montreal, they can definitely get themselves higher up the table. But for Montreal, they're the team that is currently sitting just above the red line, and they know that they need to start to keep winning games because there are going to be teams that below them, and especially some teams below them that is having a relatively good run of form the last couple of games, can really chase them down if they continue to draw points in these next couple of games. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be the Texas Derby between FC Dallas versus the Houston Dynamo, or actually it should be the Houston Dynamo versus FC Dallas, because usually I want to say the home team is what I first mentioned. But anyway, this is of course the third Copa Tejas meeting, but this is actually the 47th meeting between these two Texas foes, with Dallas leading the series, but not by much. Only 17, 15, and 14 over Houston, which means that this rivalry has been very even in the past couple, or in terms of the all-time series. But that being said, coming into this game, both of these teams are below the red line, and in fact, pretty much all three Texas teams so far are below the red line. So yeah, these Texas teams, they're definitely not having a good season in this one, and obviously, so that couldn't be more true for the Dynamo. As is this maybe finally the game that they end their third team game winless run, and if they can do it, if there is a game that they can finally end a winless run, this is a big opportunity to do so, because Dallas this season, besides that one big win against Sporting KC on the road and one unexpected win against SKC, they have not done well so far on the road whatsoever. But in terms of the last 5 head-to-head meeting between both of these teams, it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams the first time they met, before Dallas did win 3-0 against Houston. But then Houston won 2-0 against Dallas before it was a 2-1 win that Dallas had against the Dynamo. And then it was a 0-0 draw between both of these teams. But yeah, like I said, both of these teams are desperate in terms of getting wins. I mean, the Dynamo, they're desperate in terms of getting wins because they haven't got a win ever since May, and they have now gone 3 months without a win. But for Dallas, after that really disappointing result against pretty much a reserved Seattle Sounders team, they're looking to try to bounce back and trying to get a win so that they can keep pace in terms of some of the team around them to chase for that last spot in the Western Conference in the playoffs. But now moving on in terms of the next match, and talking about the team that currently has the last spot in the Western Conference, the playoffs, is the Portland Timbers, and they also have got to be aware that there's a lot of teams behind them that is hot on their heels in terms of trying to get themselves back above the red line, and after the last 2 games have definitely not gone the way that they hoped for. I mean, first of all, that Cascadia Derby was an absolute nightmare for them. But, they kind of bounced back against SKC, albeit they did go back to old habit and concede the late goals. Well, now they're going to have to try to bounce back against a team that they got absolutely embarrassed a couple of weeks ago. And that, of course, is Austin FC. In fact, the Timbers, they always have that habit in terms of getting embarrassed by expansion team. I mean, it even happened when they were playing Cincinnati where, they lost 3-0 against Cincinnati at home. And I think to this day, that is still the biggest victory margin that Cincinnati has had. And obviously for Austin FC, in their short history, the 4-1 win against the Timbers is the biggest victory margin that they have this year. And, this season for Austin, unfortunately, they're kind of starting to becoming like FC Cincinnati in their expansion year, as they're now currently sitting dead last in the Western Conference with a 4-4-11 record. Well, the Timbers, as I mentioned, they drew 1-1 against SKC away to just stay above the red line, and their record is 7-3-9. And as I mentioned, only one prior meeting between both of these teams, and it was Austin absolutely decimating the Timbers by winning 4-1 in that game. And yeah, I think the Timbers would definitely want to try to not have that same faith again and not try to get embarrassed by Austin FC again. But that being said, Austin this season, I mentioned it many times and I'm going to mention it again. This is a team that just cannot find a way to score goals. And even when they did kind of finally found a way to score goals, and I've kind of mentioned how it's kind of like feast or famine for them. And in some way it's kind of is, because when they are able to score a goal, they're going to score a couple of goals. But that's if you don't look at the last game against the Whitecaps, where that was really the first time where Austin looked like they finally got something going at home, and then they just kind of give up two very soft goals to the Whitecaps and lose that one. So they're looking to hope to avoid doing that against a Timbers team that is desperate to try to get all 3 points and try to end the week on a better note, because if they aren't able to do so, this is definitely one of the worst weeks, you gotta say, in this Timbers franchise history, with the way that they just get embarrassed by Seattle, gave up a late goal against SKC on the road, and potentially losing to Austin FC and become the first team to do so twice in this season. But now, moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Rocky Mountain Cup between the Colorado Rapids and RSL. So this is the 52nd Rocky Mountain Cup between both of these teams, with RSL leading the series 25, 11, and 17. But that being said, Colorado does have a better record so far this season with a 10-4-4 record, while RSL has a 7-6-6 record. But that being said, when you look at the last 5 head-to-head meeting, I mean, besides that one game where the Rapids were able to win 5-0 against RSL, RSL has been pretty much dominating this rivalry. They won 3-0 in the last game against the Rapids earlier this season, then winning 4-1 on the road against the Rapids, winning 2-0 at home against the Rapids before going on the road and winning 3-2 against the Colorado Rapids. And knowing the fact that RSL have also started to get their season back on track following back-to-back wins, this is definitely not going to be an easy task for this Rapids team, and especially this is probably going to be the more dangerous RSL team that they're going to face compared to the one that they faced earlier this season, and the team that they faced earlier this season, they of course lost to them. So yeah, this should be an interesting Rocky Mountain Cup, and like I said, this is really the first time where I've seen both of these teams are kind of like on level peggings. I mean, I know earlier this season you would say that's the case, but I thought Colorado was the favorites coming into that game. It was really one of the first time that they were heavy favorites against RSL for a very long time. But knowing the fact that both of these teams have been on a relatively good run, it should make a very interesting Rocky Mountain Cup in a game where I know a lot of people have always said the Rocky Mountain Cup is an afterthought rivalry. This one might not be the case. This one could get a little bit spicy, and in fact, to just say why the Rocky Mountain Cup maybe isn't an afterthought rivalry, there's been a lot of red cards that has been happening in this game, and I won't be surprised there could be another red card in this game that could really change the outcome of this Rocky Mountain Cup. But now moving on into the last game of the busy Saturday night action is none other than the Vancouver Whitecaps versus LAFC, and this is no doubt a very emotional game for the Vancouver Whitecaps, because this is the first time that they're playing at home, and they finally become the last team to finally play in their home market, as they're going to be playing at BC Place for the first time in 539 days, and they get a chance to play their first home game and get a win against LAFC, who, yeah, this season it has not gone according to the way that LAFC were hoping that they would be hitting this season, as they have now found themselves winless in the last 5 games and once again find themselves below the red line with a 6-5-8 record. This game will start at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:11 p.m. local time. In terms of the last 5 head-to-head matchup, both of these teams drew 2-2 earlier this season at Bank of California Stadium before the Whitecaps were able to win 2-1 against LAFC, though LAFC did win 6-0 against the Whitecaps and then winning 6-1 against the Whitecaps at home. But the Whitecaps did win 1-0 against LAFC, and if there's something about these two teams meeting each other, you know, whenever this game is at BC Place, that might be an area where LAFC kind of don't want to visit, because they have struggled against the Whitecaps when they play at BC Place. And in some way, this is kind of also kind of a head-to-head meeting between two teams that you know when they face against each other, the home team most likely could get the win, because the away team tends to feel like the opposition is kind of like a house of horror with the result that has happened in the last 5 head-to-head game. And there's no doubt that trend can continue coming into this game, because the Whitecaps got a very big 2-1 victory on the road against Austin FC, and a rare road win that they had this season. And now they have a chance to really play in front of their fans, and I expect BC Place, even though I know it's not going to be in full capacity, I think it's going to be 50% capacity in this game against LAFC. You know they're going to try to will their team to get a victory, and that, again, it's going to be a very emotional game for the Whitecaps, and really a big moment for those players, because, you know, we talk about these Canadian team, of them finally getting to play in front of their fans, and how much of a lift that it could give to them. Well, this could be a good case for the Whitecaps, where, you know, as I said, they're the last team to be able to return to their home market. They've been looking for this moment for a very long time, and let's see if they can use that as a motivation to get themselves a victory against LAFC. But that being said, that is pretty much it in terms